Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the podcast. We're here once again with legendary strength coach Dan John. He's got a tree thing going on today, but we're glad he could make it for our weekly Q&A. So post whatever questions you have. We'll get to them presently after we do our little catch up here. Dan, how has your week been? How's your training going and all that good stuff?
It's going well. First, I apologize to our listeners for being 2 minutes late. Sometimes you got to juggle, issues in the home with, podcasts. So I lifted in that weightlifting meet, Hercules Barbell Club, King of the Hill on Saturday. I'm sore. I am sore, but I lifted okay.
Good.
I have 8 weeks now to prep. So, I consciously went in with almost no preparation and just to get a sense of what I need to do. And I got to tell you, folks, if you decide to perform without practice, gaps will be obvious.
So, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And then last night, our trivia team won. So I got to tell you, folks, it's been a couple of weeks. It's been thankfully we scored big with the cats questions. So but we were very good at the cats questions. Let me double check, make sure I don't have that weird button pushed again.
Everything looks and sounds okay on my end, but yeah, do your checking in.
So what's going to happen? Why don't you tell us how you're doing, and I'll be gone for about 5 seconds.
That sounds great, Dan. I will talk to the gentle listeners here. It's great to have everyone. I'm doing good. I'm doing fine, of course. Lots of busy stuff happening over here. But let me remind everyone to send your questions in. I already see there's some interesting conversation happening in the comment section. Nathaniel, great to see you. Dan, great to see you. Yeah, we got the whole Anthony, great to see you. Looks like we got the whole crew here today. So Dan, let's circle back real quick. I like this idea of just kind of stepping up to the platform when you haven't really been doing a lot of specific rehearsal. And of course, my mind immediately goes to music on this, right? Because I've been doing a lot of that lately. We just had a gig last weekend, and it's funny because we've been practicing and preparing with a lot of intensity, very specifically. But man, even with some of the stuff we're doing, if just like a day or two of practice is not there, do the gaps start to pop back up, especially when material is new, right? Or you might say it hasn't really become second nature. The more you really got to keep on top of stuff. And the same thing for lifting, after you've hit certain numbers for a while, it kind of sinks in, and the more time you can kind of get away from it. But it's also true that the more you really, really push to the edge of your abilities, the more you just have to stay on top of it to stay there, right? And how quickly, boy, does that whatever that is, that 5% or 10% that is the real difference maker in the company, how quickly that slides, right? Now you're still going to be savagely strong compared to the average population, but that little bit that gives you the real edge, man. Is that right, Dan? Has that been true in your experience, right?
It brings me back to sitting down with Göran Svensson. Now, he was this great Swedish discus thrower. He's no longer with us. He died very young. He and Stefan both died when they were 35. It was when I was really beat up. We just had Kelly at the time, and we were expecting Lindsay. And I just couldn't. I wanted to keep competing, but I just couldn't. He said, why don't you just, we started talking about just lifting 2 days a week. And I thrived on those MED workouts, minimum effective dose or whatever it's called, this, and you see it all the time, over at Strong First, they're real big about these minimalist programs. I see it all the time. The program minimum, I'll tell you what makes minimum work is coming in from maximum. So if you've been on the road you're the Grateful Dead, you've been on the road for 24 years, and you guys decide to take 6 weeks off, and then you only, you do a couple of gigs, you're probably okay. Because if you have this much and then you bring it to this, you can make it work. So one of the things, if you don't mind me kind of not really ranting.
Yeah, rant away. That's what we bring you on for, Dan, of course.
Yeah, but I get so mad. So frustrated, the silliest things.
Pissed.
I think what makes a minimum workout work is that huge foundation you went into it. So for me, going to a weightlifting meet, even if, like, for example, the weight felt heavy, I wasn't leaping underneath the bar because I didn't trust my technique enough, which, hurt me, of course, on the snatch. I really had to pop them up. I can get away with that, but it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
And you can look at the numbers and see that I didn't lift well. You can look at my technique and see that I'm not right. But I'm still very strong, and my numbers are very good compared to, some of you follow.
Oh yeah, comparatively, of course, right.
Very weird, folks. But the numbers were good for others, but not good for me.
Well, that makes total sense, right? Yeah, and again, I'll draw the analogy. The last gig we had went really well, but one tune just didn't go as well as it had been when we were rehearsing it. And man, like it really, like everybody still loved it, still sounded great, but I knew I was capable of better than that, and that's always frustrating, right? And that's how it is on the platform too. Like you'll be training and you'll have your practice it, you'll hit great numbers, but sometimes you step on the platform and it just fall a little bit short of where you were during the rehearsal, but sometimes also you'll go beyond where you ever were too. So you get you get the highs, you get the lows, and that's just the nature of performance, right? And because that's the excitement of it, is like for a lot of this stuff you only get one take, right? It's just that's it. You don't get to sit there and just keep doing over and over and over again. Hey crowd, let me do that song again. I can do it better this time, right? Let me do that lift, to 10 more times. I'll get the numbers, right? Yeah, that's how it works, right? Yeah.
Trust me. When I was young, bodybuilders in the off season still look better than anybody you'd ever meet in your life. Nowadays, there's a lot more bloat. And there's a lot. They don't.
Yeah.
The thing is, Dave Draper, out of shape, 6 weeks after Don't Make Waves, still looks better than, anybody else on the beach. You know what I'm saying? You can get away with minimum for a while. You can enjoy it, but there is going to be you got to flip it sometimes. I don't know what I'm talking about, folks.
No, it's I think what we're getting at here, and it's kind of a thing that's hard to, because I've never really put it down in writing myself. But I know exactly what you're talking about. It's the idea that minimalism works, I guess, better or best for people who've spent time being maximalists, right? It's hard, especially if you're trying to perform at a high level. If you're trying to perform at a high level, and it depends how you conceptualize minimalism. If you conceptualize it the way that I do, which is kind of cheating, which is just do the least amount you need to get the output you want, that could be a tremendous amount of work. But if you define minimalism as I'm just going to do 15 to 30 minutes of practice a day, 3 to 4 days a week, that's not going to put you in the elite category for anything. Right. At all. But if you've already been a maximalist to get into the elite category and you slide into a phase of minimalism, you'll probably be just fine for a while, because you have such a robust and vigorous foundation from being a maximalist. I think that's what I'm hearing anyways, Dan.
Yeah. So, if you're in the church choir and you have one rehearsal a week, you're probably fine, for the local parish, the local church congregation. Right. But, if you're going to go to the next step, things change. And I think that's, I think that's a nice way to think of both music and what in our worlds and strength and fitness and conditioning, is that, I try to talk about this in armor building formula, and people miss the point. Even training 1 hour a day is probably going to get you into really good shape, and you're going to love what you see. Training for the platform as a bodybuilder, that slides up to a mere 11 hours a day more. You go to 12. There's no middle, really, for most people.
Yeah. And the other important thing to note here is we're not telling you guys to go one way or the other, right? We're just saying, and this is, when I talk with people who are thinking about doing coaching or something, the first thing I try to do is just set out expectations of, say, hey, here's your goals, and here's realistically, what the path would look like for each, just so you understand that there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't want to be an elite performer. I just want to look good. I want to feel good, and I'll take that minimalist. And when it comes to fitness, that's pretty much me. I'm not an elite performer when it comes to. I put a lot more effort into a lot other things in my life, including music and academic work and really my business. Like there's a lot more time and energy and effort that I put into those areas of my life than I do fit. I still work very hard in fitness, but I do take a more, I'm lifting hard just about 3 days per week, and I try to walk every day, and I just try to do the basics really well, but I'm not trying to get on the platform and compete with Dan or anybody else. It's just not one of my goals right now. So nothing wrong with that, right? In fact, for most people, most of the time, I think it's probably best not to try to be an elite performer. Right?
Yeah, I think years ago when I was teaching, I was talking to a boy. He had just about to graduate from high school, and I said, "Well, what are you going to be doing?" He goes, I just been going at it so hard. I just need some time off." And I remember thinking, "Wait, you think going to high school, you need a break after?" High school, because I didn't even
wait until life.
It's like, wait, mom makes you breakfast and dinner, the school makes you lunch. You go down in the cafeteria and you copy off somebody else's homework. You cheat on tests, and now you need a break. What do you think? What do you think real life's going to be back? When do you have a couple of kids screaming at once and a dog puking on carpet? Well, that's when you need a break. Yeah, that's.
It is laughable, indeed. I always try to be a little gentle with. I don't encounter many high schoolers, but I've been in a few situations teaching them, and try not to be a complete jerk. But I do try to get them to understand that life doesn't get any easier.
One other thing I gotta tell people is that right after I hang up, I'm gonna go see my attorney, and I'll be finishing up my last will and testament and my directives. So if I don't make it home, because at least my estates will be settled. So,
well, what a responsible course of action. Of course, not something anybody wants to think about, but an important thing to do, right? To like floss.
Well, that actually ties right back in. I mean, in my mind anyway, about being, my vision of what is a responsible adult, and one of them is acknowledging that I am mortal. Socrates is mortal. Dan John is a Socrates, ergo. Wait a second.
Don't drink hemlock. There you go.
Sorry, syllogism. Sometimes you get lost in them. Yeah, I think it's important really to get a handle on a lot of things. I'm happy about it. So it's kind of fun to think I Olympic lifted in a meet. I played trivia with my team last night, and today I'm signing off. Oh, and at the same time, Alex sent me his books, and I'm going to write the foreword to his next book.
Alex,
Salkin, yeah.
Oh, wonderful, awesome.
I had never.
He didn't send them to me, Dan.
Holy.
Oh yes, that one. Yes, that's right. Isn't that funny? He's a real funny guy. That Alex. He's
amazing. And so here I am writing a foreword for somebody else's work. I'm writing a foreword, and I'm writing a last will in the same day. And I think that's a great way to look at life.
Yeah.
I am, I'm mortal, but man, I still want to be pumping things out. And one other thing too, I go on a date tomorrow with Josephine, my granddaughter.
Oh, wonderful.
For her 10th birthday, which just when I did the math and said 10th, I thought, where does the time go?
Man, they start small and they get big. That was the advice you gave me, Dan.
Still true.
And I realize it's true. Let's take some questions. All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Great to see so many comments. Nathaniel says, does it make sense to train clean and jerk as well as snatching if my goal is just to get a big snatch? Dan, you're the guy to ask for this.
I would only just reference what Nick Horton. Nick had the Portland State weightlifting team decades after I left. Portland State is where I did my intensive Turkish before I went off. He would tell you squat, snatch, and front squat. So snatch and front squat. And if you really want to increase your snatch, you can. The nice thing about snatching is you can snatch multiple times in a day. And I think snatching is more like discus throwing. So the more reps you get, the better. Clean and jerks are not. They're Well, they're more like shot putting, really, but they're the beat down of the clean and jerk makes it real hard to keep coming back. So I would suggest snatch and front squat. And if you can do multiple bouts in a day, it might be better than one long workout. I don't know how many, top of my head, I don't know how many lifts would fit in the category I just said, where the more bouts you have a week is better than the intensity of the workouts. The more you snatch, the better you get at it. Because there is a weird amount of timing. So that the timing, the mobility, the flexibility, you need to just keep layering them. Okay, so I hope that helps.
Rock and roll. Coco Loco, your boy Coco Loco's here. He says, question for the both of you. Any examples of kettlebell complexes or circuits as finishers to build conditioning and work capacity, and maybe a guide on how to plan or create them rather than being random with them?
Well, I just wrote a whole book on it, and you have do you still have your products, your complex?
Of course I do. Of course I do.
Yeah. So
got a free one if people want. I got that 101.
Yeah, just
101 kettlebellworkouts.com.
Put that on the
and that's free. And they are for the gentle listeners who just like things very simply laid out. In that PDF right here, 101kettlebellworkouts.com, they're all categorized according to what the emphasis is: strength, conditioning, work capacity. So you could just literally grab those. I know he said not at random, but you could grab them at random and plug them into a structured program, and then you don't think about it. And of course, you can grab Dan John's very beautiful, printed at, what was that, Office Space, armor building formula right there. And between those two resources, that should solve all your complex
needs. I think,
and
Alex, I just noticed he does a lot of those in his books too. The thing about complexes are, and it's the criticism I had of you, Pat, and again, I
cry.
When you move to complexes, like what we do with my throwers, when we do barbell complexes, I always make a big, actually this is Trek technique, but it'll show. So I blow them up about this big, and I put, so if there's 5 or 6 lifts, I'll make big fonts. I use Arial black, 32 or 48 or something, and it will say power clean, press, front squat, jerk, back squat, good morning. It'll be, yep. And if you, and there has to be a logic. If you're doing kettlebell work, you can't do a set of cleans followed by a set of Turkish get-ups because there's no flow to it.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing about complexes is making.
And don't put like a set of like high rep heavy snatches in towards the end of a complex where you've already just smoked your upper. Like these things should have as Dan said, a logical structure to them, right?
The one I did yesterday was barbell, but I did snatch grip, Romanian deadlift, hang snatch, overhead squat, back squat, just 4 things. But I went boom. I see RDL. Snatch, overhead squat, back squat, toss the weight off, catch my breath, repeat. So it's got to have a logic. There's got to be, that's why there's the natural ones like clean, press, front squat are just so natural. Clean, press, front squat, rack walk. Where the load doesn't, the load goes to where it needs to be, stays there. There's a logic to it, which most people. The logic was what most people. I get these when complexes were huge. What about a decade ago? Remember that was the one. Do you remember the year I first met you, Patrick?
20. Oh gosh, it was down in Florida at that event. That had to have been 2011.
Okay, so 2011. If you remember at the time, you would go on the Dragon Door site, and I'm trying this out, and then people would have these 20 item complexes. What do you think? And I'd be like, how does anybody remember these? you know, how do you remember these? You know, it would be row to clean to lunge to, you know, and just item after item. So that was my thought.
Right. Yeah, so check out those resources, 101kettlebellworkouts.com and the Alma Building Complex. Here we go. All right, lots of comments here. Justin says, I've met high schoolers who have such high stress schedule that it would kill me, and I own a home and run a business. Yes, I agree. There are certainly high schoolers that work hard, but in my experience, and again, limited, I had this one girl in one of my classes. She was an absolute rock star. She would probably definitely graduated to valedictorian, you know, did everything, went to the really tough private school. And I could tell she was very tired, but she didn't complain. The kids that were complaining in general, and I'm not downplaying the other ones, were the kids that were clearly not putting in the effort, cheating off their friends' papers. And like I said, I'm never a jerk to them, and I'm not saying that what they're going through isn't difficult. I just emphasize that they should not expect life to get easier, right? And so there's a choice that they can make about how they want to face the challenges and stresses of life, right? And opportunities for growth in those challenges and stresses and how to handle them. That's how I always like to present it. And to be, you know, fair, look, there are some adults that do seem to have less on their shoulders than others for various reasons. But I'm glad that's not me, Dan. I imagine you feel the same way. I mean, my life is exceedingly heavy with obligations, as we announced last time. I'm now doing the PhD, running my business. I've got a band that I run. I run multiple podcasts. I just finished the second book that I've written in a year. Constantly writing different articles, both on a popular level, also the academic level. I've got 6 children. You know, the list, like, it just goes on, and I've got all the training, the physical training I do, all the kids' activities. So like, there's like an ounce of breathing room in my life, right? So I could complain about it, but I'm not. I'm actually extremely grateful for it. I'm exhausted at the end of every, like, the moment the kids go to bed, the first thing me and my wife do is just, that's it, right? We can't even say hello to each other. It's just this huge at the end of every day, and we're grateful for it. We love it, but look, it is exhausting, and that's just life. And a lot of that I signed up for. You know, I've got this issue where if I guess I don't have like several massive projects at once, I sort of just get bored, right? So maybe this is a personality thing, but I find that keeps life interesting. And I don't know. Maybe I just sort of, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I guess maybe that's just the sort of way that I'm wired. I need those sort of challenges in my life. And it seems like you might be similar in that respect, Dan.
One thing that's always helped me is I've always used my dad and mom's age. Of course, with my mom, you know, I'm much older than my mom when she died. Oh my gosh, I'm well over a decade older than my mom when she died, but I'll just put myself, and I've done this a number of times. Like when I was 40, I remember thinking, okay, this is going to be weird, but here I am 40, and I've got I had an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, you know, and I was the hard commute every day and the 2 jobs and all that. And then I thought about my dad and my mom when they were that age, and they just had a little baby named Danny. And I just think to myself, you know, maybe you got it rough with a 6 and 8-year-old at 40, but a newborn, ouch, you know. It's been very helpful for me. You know, and if you don't mind, and I'm already seeing all these comments about, you know, I'm a terrible person, I guess, because I think high school kids have it easy. I also taught high school for a long time, and I had a chance to see. I tell you one thing: if you want to be successful in high school, get rid of putting things off to the last second. That would be my advice. Doing things early is the $1 million answer. Yeah, let's get off this topic. This is just
seek challenges.
Seek challenges.
and do more better with yourself. How's that?
Yeah.
There we go. All right, let us a lot of good conversation going, but I'm looking for some questions here. YouTube Punk reminds us to skip the Hemlock Shake, but I would recommend the Shamrock Shake if you get a chance to try it. Peach Milkshake is back at Chick-fil-A, one of my favorites. And the Grandma McFlurry is currently happening at McDonald's. Probably shouldn't be recommending these things on a fitness podcast, but every once in a while you need a little something to cool down in this oppressive heat, even in Wisconsin. Here's a question from, oh boy, man, if this is, I don't know if this is going to shift the mood in a better direction or not, but MTLK says, I can't listen live today, but if either of you could share what brings you hope at low moments, I'd appreciate it and would listen after work. Wow, that's a big question, but hope you're not struggling too much here, my dear friend. I'm sure maybe we can offer a few thoughts. Dan, we've certainly had our share of low moments in life.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So this is one of the times I wish you'd answer with your real damn names. And don't take this wrong. I know you're going through a tough time, but I would like to talk to you as a person, not as a bunch of code letters. But one of the things that another Patrick who's in my life helped me with is I have a journal called Hope Journal, and I started this a couple of years ago. And it's not for public consumption. That's where I put my assignments, my mental assignments in. And every so often, I'll when I'm a little confused about things, a year and a half ago, almost exactly today, Tiffany died, and 5 years ago, last week, Phil died, and then inside of all that, all these kind of crappy things. The Hope is 5 years old. There's a lot of other stuff that happened, not all that level terrible. But the first thing is, if you don't mind, the sign over hell, according to Dante, is abandon all hope, ye who enter here. So the key to understand that great line is that as long as you keep hope, keep hope in your heart, keep hope in your mind. You're not there yet. There's still a chance to turn things around. And I got to tell you, folks, that one sentence really helped me a lot.
That's why it's a theological virtue, right?
One of the big three, yeah. Mm-hmm. As long as you have hope, there's still hope. As long as you have hope, there's still hope.
That's good.
I got to tell you,
the fundamentals are fundamental, right? I mean, sometimes these truisms make a lot of sense, right?
The basics of the basics for a good reason, yeah, because of the basics. Yeah. That helped me. One other thing I'm modeling for you right now is to have a private journal somewhere mine's password protected. I'm not trying to be all James Bond or anything, but it's something I don't necessarily want my children to read.
Sure, yeah, understandable.
After I'm gone, or whoever gets over my intellectual property. So having a journal is helpful. The other thing that helps me a lot, and this has been a truism my whole life, as long as I remain in community, as long as I have people to talk to and even help, good things happen. I still help people move, during the worst times of my life, and spending 8 or 9 hours helping a friend, move from an apartment to a house, or helping someone, downsize. Anything I can do in community. I talk every week about our trivia team, and it always community. So having hope, being involved in community. Thursday nights I go to the senior center and I dance. Every single day. And half an hour after we hang up, people from all over the world show up at my house to train with me. As long as you keep keeping on, I think you're okay.
Yeah, that's great. I'll offer one, aside from everything that Dan said, and faith and family and the big ones. I think those are necessary conditions to maintain hope. Mm-hmm. I would recommend, there's a great classical philosophical text that I think it's all about trying to find hope at a point of despair. It's called Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius.
Well, fantastic book, and the modern concept of eternity comes from him.
That's exactly right. Right. And so if you grab that, and I would actually recommend the version from Ignatius Press because it's got some wonderful commentary. That book was very significant for me, and it used to be a book through a lot of history that everybody pretty much was expected to read, at least if you were a reading person. Um, it's kind of fallen out of popularity in recent centuries. Unfortunately, so I think it's a
Oh,
monumental work,
I didn't.
and the story behind it, of course, is hugely significant. It's a man who's about to be executed. So I would commend that. If one other thing is just to give that book a read, Consolation of Philosophy. All right, hope that helps you, my dear friend. And let's keep moving on here. Now we're going to go right back to a practical question. Zandark, boy Zandark wants to know what are some good exercises for midsection strength. Let's strengthen the midsection. The windmill, the one leg kettlebell deadlift? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Well, I mean, my go-to is always the suitcase carry. Stu McGill went up and studied it, and he says he would agree that it's interesting because you can start with just going for a walk, Zandark. Just going for honestly for I know it doesn't sound as sexy as some things, but getting that nice arm swing on a walk is very helpful. Then when you load it up with a suitcase carry, if you can still keep that swing going with that 32K in your hand, the body has to make these massive compensations. You mentioned the windmill there. There is a learning curve with both of the exercises you put in, windmill and one leg kettlebell deadlift. There is no learning curve with suitcase carries. It's just here, walk away. So there's a value to that. I've always I am a big fan. Let me give you what we do with our throwers. The hanging bent knee leg raise is I think again almost no learning curve. Now the funny thing is, what's going to give up first, your grip or your ab wall? And that is a fascinating thing to actually watch with with the people I train, the adult group I train, the throwers I train. You go until you can't keep going, which is interesting because a lot of my young throwers, the grip gives out. They can't hang for 30 seconds and move. Some other people I work with, the big deadlifters, they can't bring their knees up anymore after a few, 20 seconds. They can't get those knees up. So it's a nice little whole body assessment check-in. The next one is I'm going to use my Hibernate bottle, but you hold the weight overhead like this. It's called the Saxon side bends.
Yeah.
And then the third would be the ab wheel, but you'll notice
I was going to bring it up. Have to. Yeah.
with all these exercises, there's a very, very, very low level of entry here. And what's the fourth exercise? Oh, suitcase carry. I'm sorry. So for me, I like when you're trying to train this region of the body, I like things to go longer with no learning curve. Once you get that down, then slide it into the windmill or the bent press or the Turkish get up. If you want to go down that road, there's value to it. But I like I like those baby steps into it that really test you. And then okay, that's
great. And I think we talked about gaps before, and there was this idea of leakage, and I think that there is value in that because it's true. Yes, your abs are activating during a lot of big lifts. Of course they are. But I think there is value in that direct core training as well. Kind of, Dan, you talk about knitting, sort of just continues to knit things together to fortify.
And Chef Impossible brings up that like the rack carries and bear hug carries make my ab. It's all we're all in the same idea, Pat. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. But
no, you're great. It's great.
Mm-hmm. So to me, I'm a believer. Like you'll notice I don't ever put crunches for ab work ever because that isolated movement. And there's not. I mean, obviously, I just did Saxon side bends, so obviously there is some isolation. But I like those exercises that make the whole body sing when you're trying to train the core, the column, whatever, because that's how it works in real life.
Yeah, 100%. Great stuff. I'm a big fan of the direct core work. So, all right, let me scroll back up because I know we missed a few here. Try not to leave any of y'all out. There was another question, a programming question, and man, it's kind of buried now. I wanted to get to it. Oh, I'm sorry, gentle listener, if I missed it. Sometimes things just go missing. All right, well, I'm going to continue on here. All right, here we go. Nathaniel says, any tips for thoracic spin mobility? I think it means spine.
Oh gosh, you know what? Thanks for saying that. I looked at that and I'm like, oh man, there's something new out there. Okay, damn.
But he's jealous of your mobility, Dan. He's seen you move and he wants the secret. Can you give him the secret to that?
Yeah, I would
suppleness of yours.
You know, so it's interesting. The question before we talked about exercises for the core. Now I want to talk about something else. That's why I think original strength, Tim Anderson's, you know, the neck nods and the finer and that one tradition is called pandiculation. All those gentle, movements that slowly slide you into more mobility is the key, I think. Now, right now, I am rocked up. My mobility is probably as bad today as it's been in years because I had a weightlifting meet on Saturday and I had a heavy training session yesterday.
Yeah.
So load beats my mobility up, and I know that. So
to all of us for sure.
When I have this afternoon, I'm gonna have a fairly free afternoon. I am getting a tree and I'm getting some butterfly bushes put in. So I don't have to do anything. One lesson, folks, if you want to be a master's Olympic lifter, hire out tree planting and heavy shrubbery planting, because if you do that, you won't train for 3 more days. But this kind of the whole family of original strength, I think, is the best way to get your T-spine movement in. You can do, like, I know some right in, well, there's these yoga variations. Sometimes the problem with yoga variations is to get yourself in that position that the instructor wants you to be, you do all these other things, but you don't get yourself a chance to get to what you
that good rotation, yeah,
what you actually need. So you're in this lunge and you got one elbow inside the knee and you're reaching to the sky, but instead of reaching to you're in that position, but your hand is over here versus here because of all the other issues. You keep bumping into all the other.
I'm just going to start assigning people play like 10 minutes of that old game Twister for their mobility.
Yeah.
Should take care of it pretty quick, right?
Oh, yeah. And my only concern is that our people start sending pictures of themselves playing Twister or naked Twister or and I know
don't
I know some of these people who
perverts. You stay away from us. Oh, nothing to do with that. Yeah. Oh, Dan, with the windmill stick, it's always one of my favorites of yours.
Absolutely.
Such a great mobility exercise for the T-spine.
Windmill stick, go look it up on YouTube, folks. It's a great stretch. But even the windmill stick, look at how many instructions I have for it. I think it's marvelous, and I really do. When you slide in like that, I think it's great. But even with it, for some people, it's like that's
it's a brain twister for them. It can be. Yeah, it's one of those things where if you try to just describe it, people just always mess it up. But if you're in there in person, you can usually get them doing it pretty quick. The other one I'll do is just the favorite, just the Zenith stretch. You're in the 6-point, rock, and you sit back on your heels. I've got this on my YouTube channel. I know I'm sure Tim does too. Long, tall spine. You take one arm, you weave it through, and then up to Zenith, as Dan John says. That is I do that one every single day. That's the money. That's the money stretch for me. Hits the shoulders. It stretches the pecs, the biceps. You get the great T-spine rotation. Feels great on the back, the hips. It's just and you want to make sure that you are, sitting back, butt to heels, because that helps kind of like lock in the low back. Which you want to focus on that T-spine rotation.
And if you decide to do that kind of pumping, that pandiculation, that nudging, where even if you move in that position a little bit, you'll find sometimes, like for me, I think I'm stiff from here to here, so to speak. Yeah, I'm stiff here.
Yes,
that's my favorite part of mobility work, is when I discover that what I think is 200 square feet of stiffness is actually just a small little pocket, and then I'll think, oh, that's right. I gotta make sure I do that mobility or stretch that, or oh, I fell off the ladder the other day and hit that. That's why I'm so stiff in my neck. It's not my neck. It's falling down the flight of stairs and hitting my.
Right, of course, yeah.
And I got to tell you, it's weird sometimes. I remember playing football, and they used to get honest about not being flexible enough, and it's like, Coach, do you see what you were doing the other 40 hours a week?
Right.
The reason my flexibility is going down, my hamstrings by the end of the season, I don't know if I could touch my knees, but because I was just getting, traffic accidents, 48 traffic accidents a day,
Right. Yep. Yeah, wild. Just and I'll just say last point on this one is that as I've gotten older and I think maybe a little bit wiser, mobility has become a lot more of a frequent thing that I do. It's not just a warm up. I do mobility stuff in the morning. I of course do my warm ups, but I do a lot of it between sets too. Between when I'm doing my heavy presses, between those sets, I'm doing the Zenith. It just feels great to just work in those little doses of mobility between sets, kind of make productive use of your rest times. You're not doing the Instagram or whatever. So think about that. Ways of just kind of sprinkling that stuff in.
I was looking back on the program Tim Anderson and I came up with. This would be, I don't know, 3-4 years ago for me to get ready for the state weightlifting meet. And between every set of snatches, clean and jerks, I had a little original strength movement to do. And it's weird because that has just become the norm for me in our training. An interesting original strength move, is that I often will do hanging bent knee leg raises between sets, especially presses now. And people go, well, that's not original strength. And I'll say, well, it's funny because I think it is. I think it's hanging and bringing your knees to the chest for me, feels a lot like, well, stuff we do on the ground or in prone or whatever.
Yeah. Good. Kevin says, suggestion on a good electrolyte product that doesn't break the bank. I actually just got something for you. Because my wife, being pregnant, has been very much into the electrolyte drinks right now, and I make it for her. So it starts with water, mineral water, and then we use a magnesium powder that is called Calm, which is a basic.
Yeah, Calm is awesome, man.
I throw Calm in there, some fresh lemon. She likes fresh lemon, and then a little bit of cream of tartar. Because that gives you your potassium, and then a little hit of salt, and she loves this. So it's just good water, the Calm stuff, which is not that expensive, cream of tartar, potassium. She likes the fresh lemon and a bit of salt, and so I make that for her every day. She sucks it down like a camel. So there you go. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need to do this. Cream of tartar. I had no idea. That's great.
Yes. So it gives you the potassium. Yep.
When I was young, I used to the Jay Price used to call it Dan John Miracle Water. It's just a joke. I would take those. I always keep milk gallons. I don't do it as much because I don't drink milk as much. But you would fill it with water, add real lemon, and add sea salt, and that was Dan John Miracle Water. But this is so much better. I'm just. Can you post that formula?
I'm posting it right here. Water.
Well, in your newsletter, man.
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, Christine. Here's your pregnancy drink. Cream of tartar. Let me write it down here for other people. Water, Calm magnesium, cream of tartar, salt, squeeze of lemon. There you go. The lemon. There you go. That's it. That's the drink right there. I'll put it in my newsletter. For those of you who are subscribed, you'll get the formulation. Right. Yeah.
I'm shocked. And I did notice the one thing I would say, I think Pedialyte, Rejuvenate, Liquid IV, all those are fine. But one person did write generic. We have those. Well, I don't know what they're called anymore, but they're all $1 stores. By the way, I'm pissed off. They're not $1 anymore. They're $1.25, and that's
That's misleading. But yeah, so like there's other drinks that I and Christine like too, but man, those things get expensive. They get expensive. So we just went to the homemade Flynn elixir. That's right. Yep.
I had no idea about the cream of tartar. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, man, that's the secret. That's the secret right there. And that Calm Magnesium is, I like that stuff. It's a good fine product, and it's not that expensive. We get like the big thing of it from Costco. Yeah.
And it's funny. I used to take that so much at night, and I shifted because that this is how I get my magnesium.
Take the pill, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I like Calm, and the thing is about magnesium drinks, and of course, working with the military, you always had to be so careful about how you explain this. Because if I tell them that milk of magnesia is cheaper than Calm, and it is, the problem with those guys is, well, if 1 tablespoon is good, half a bottle is better, and we would lose them for 3 or 4 days to massive diarrhea.
There you go.
I tell you something about magnesium is it is the muscle relaxant. If you read the Protein Power book by Mary and Dan Eades, Eades, they talk about magnesium as being the miracle mineral, and they really feel that it's the missing link. Now, obviously, in our world, I remember Brian Oldfield, the world record holder in the shot put, he kept telling me that minerals were the key to everything, and I thought that was really. So you're talking about potassium. I'm talking about magnesium. Someone else is going to talk about, iron is always problematic, but this or that. But the truth is, if you can manipulate yourself with potassium and magnesium in interesting ways, but be careful with both. You can only buy 99 milligram potassium tablets because I guess people abuse them. Potassium. I didn't know that.
Don't abuse it.
Yeah, I
don't abuse it.
If you abuse magnesium, you don't want to go on a long bus ride. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, don't do that.
I don't know what happens if you have too much potassium. Yeah.
All right, let's squeeze in 1 or 2 more here. Marco says, "Greetings from Croatia. I'm stuck on single kettlebell presses with kettlebells connected together. A 20 and 8 kilogram, 235, 20 kilogram, 24 kilogram." And a 20. And so I guess he's stacking them. Is that what he's saying here? Stacking the kettlebells to try and get up to a 20. So it seems like he's kind of maxed out maybe around the 28 kilogram, Dan. So what counsel would we give dear Marco here to maybe help him burst through?
I mean, I had to reread that a couple times. The easiest thing would be buy another kettlebell if you can, but I know that's an issue sometimes. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. When I used to do that as a circus trick at the certs, where I'd pick up 220s and press it or whatever. You hold them like this, but it is hard because they slide. And that's why you can't do them with those competition bells. It's real hard to press 2 of them.
It's not my favorite way to go about getting more low with the press. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This is a good example of all I can say, my friend Marco, is that you got to do your best on this. So you either got to consider purchasing another kettlebell, searching around for a friend who bought a weirdly big kettlebell, or you're just going to have to just keep trying. It'd be interesting to see a picture of how you do it, because when I do it, that coffee mug, so when I do it, I try to stack I stack them.
That's great to demonstrate yeah, and it's always not optimal, right? The way things line up in the grip, it's just not ideal. I get it, straight and circle, limited equipment, this or that. But if you really can just get the 32. And then you can start to, work some doubles, and asymmetric doubles are good. You don't have to use the same weight on both sides. If you start working some of the long push presses, the controlled negatives, just get used to getting that weight overhead.
Antonio makes a good point. Maybe go into bottoms up presses. That's outstanding. And I don't even know why I didn't even hit my. It's funny, Antonio. Sometimes when you're answering a question, you go right down this little luge, and your brain. So waiter presses or bottoms up, great ideas also. I mean, the 16K bottoms up can be a real challenge for a strong person because of the staying inside the groove and the balance issues. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, very good. Well, good luck to you. And then in terms of getting the press up, consider those pressing variations and just, man, the body's like pretty good at responding. If you just start putting that weight overhead, however you can get it overhead, your body's like, oh, okay, I better get comfortable moving this thing around, right? The problem is sometimes people wait to progress. I know we've complained about this before, Dan, until they feel they can have perfect technique, right? But ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to. Whenever you strive to hit that, to get to that new level, it isn't going to look pretty for the first little bit, right? You don't be an idiot about it, but you just like, man, if you just like, again, there's a great music analogy. Like if you just try to do that lick at that new speed for the first time, and like you wait till you have it perfect to do it, it's a vicious circle. You're never going to do it, right?
Yeah.
You just got to go for it, do the best you can, realize it's not going to be perfect, but the more you do it and with good progressions, you'll get there. And just don't do anything that will obviously jack yourself up. But at the same time, you just got to bang out some crappy reps to get to the good ones. That's just it. That's just it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the joke I make with my throwers, I always say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I wasn't the foreman on that job. Ha ha ha, we laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I say to my throwers literally every day, they can't all be gems. They can't, not every, it's not always gonna be perfect. And the reason I love those two comments almost daily is that we have to constantly remind the athlete that it is, if you're going to climb up a mountain, there's going to be a lot of steps in there, and you can't rush the Appalachian Trail.
It's just so important just to get off the internet. Remember what real life is like sometimes, not accusing all of that, but sometimes the things that are presented on the internet are just so misleading. We've complained about that enough times, right?
Yeah. I can be famous in 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Dan, before we go, what's coming up here? What are you working on? What do we have to look forward to from you?
Today, after I get back from my attorneys, I'm going to reread Alex's book and then write the foreword. I have a quiet day. I got to get my steps in today somehow, but that's not going to be a problem. I'm just trying to get myself in shape for this weightlifting meet. I got a wedding in Vermont I'm going to in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, nice.
Excited about that. Moonlight in Vermont. Writing wise, I'm kind of in a little quiet period. I've been organizing some things and just seeing. I had this idea about rewriting Can You Go and intervention and the problem I'm having is it is just hard to. And because I have some new ideas about teaching the once you come up with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7s in Can You Go, I feel like I have a better handle on how to coach people from there. But
yeah, I get it.
I don't know. You spend 2 years working on a book, and then it's all of a sudden you go, "Well, was that worth it?" I don't.
Yes, the answer is yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. Of course, you always look back on the work you did 20 minutes ago, and it's like, let alone 2 years.
I'm honestly thinking I'm looking at, when I'm looking at Alex's books and, this size book maybe is something I need to be a little bit, more interested in. For some reason, I like these 500-page, weight. You can not only read about weightlifting, but you can use the book to get in shape.
For micro-loading, right? At least, yeah. Great.
But how about you? Anything exciting?
No, man, just getting to work on the PhD and trying to keep these kids fed and alive and just not, stay relatively in shape through all of it, right?
And one thing before we leave, and not one person noticed I hadn't got my haircut. This,
I noticed that it looked really nice.
It's too late. Yesterday, I went out between all my errands and got my haircut. And not even hey, Dan, you look you look nice.
Not a single person.
One, not a single. And you know what?
Well, next time get them all cut, not just one.
Well played. Well played.
Bad humor is getting strong with me, Dan.
Well, you got 6 kids. You got it. You're at a high level of bad humor.
Oh, gentle listeners, thank you for tuning in. Dan, thank you for sharing your wisdom as always. We'll see you next week. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Goodbye.